Be sure to subscribe and like our channel. So you know what time it is, Zach?
I was going to be like hammer time, but it's deeper down the rabbit
No, it's
time.
deeper down the rabbit hole time. Oh my God, Zach. Way to wreck the moment. Just destroying the moment. Utterly annihilating. Crashing through it like an elephant through obstacles. That would be a different show.
That would be a different show, though we were just talking about Ganesh earlier. So there you go.
So in case you're wondering, this is Deeper Down the Rabbit Hole and the Queen City Curio Videocast. We are broadcasting live from 607 Gerard Street East in East Chinatown for now.
For now. Secrets.
For now.
Secrets.
Or not so secrets. After a day of having film crews in all day long, we're ready to talk demons.
Damn straight.
Particularly, we're willing to talk about Four Daemon Queens from an upcoming book that isn't quite finished, but it's almost finished. From Stephanie and J.C. Decesari. Did I get it right?
Yep.
And the book is going to cover four primordial forces of Hecate, Lilith, Delepitoré, and Tezrian, all kind of different from different cultures that represent different powers. So, did I get all that right? That was a mouthful.
Yes, you did.
Try to do research. It's not quite done yet, but how long do we have to wait before it's done?
Well, it's with the editor, and I just got word that he's getting it back to me this weekend. So once we go through it again, and then it has to go into formatting, and then after that, they should be doing like the upload and all of that. So we're close. We're like really close.
Yes.
We'll have it by the end of the month. It'll be out by, I'd say, between the 20th and 25th.
See, you as an independent publisher goes through that fast.
Right.
We
can do it a little faster. Sometimes not as much, but
a little faster. No,
yeah.
I guarantee you a lot faster.
Right.
The editing process is
But it'll be out soon, so...
Yes.
Very good. So, what convinced you to write this book? What drove you to write this book?
We were just BSing one night, and like we usually do. And we were talking about how many books focus on the masculine, but the feminine kind of gets pushed to the back of the line. So Steph was like, we should write a book about the Demon Queens. Like, yeah, we should. And it was like on our drawing board for about a year before we finally said we probably should sit down and get this done.
Yeah, it was hard choosing which ones too, because we've got two very popular demons in there and two lesser known, because there's so much written about Hecate and Lilith, and not so much written for Delepitoré and Tezrian. And there could have been so many other feminine divine forces we could have drawn on, but
So what was the process of actually choosing them? Or did you just do a bag draw? I'd be like, here we go.
Honestly, we seriously were just like, okay, like we had to look at it in the sense that there are so many different demons that people subjectively view as masculine or feminine, like Leviathan, for example. Some people view Leviathan in the masculine, some view Leviathan in the feminine. So we kind of looked at spirits that were traditionally viewed as feminine regardless, and you didn't have people subjectively running around going, no, I view Hecate in the masculine, because that just doesn't happen. And the same thing with Delepitoré and Tezrian and Lilith, for that matter. No one ever says, oh, I view Lilith in the masculine. You never hear that. So So we were
Yeah.
looking for like
Yeah.
like very, very feminine energies.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So that kind of narrowed it
Leviathan's
down
an
a bit,
interesting point. I can see why some people would say feminine because it's primordial.
right? And people do the same thing with Tiamat, and they do the same thing.
Yes.
I've even heard of Lucifer in the feminine, which, you know, I mean, I don't see that personally, but I know other people
All
who
right.
have. And then when you get into like the goetic spirits, you have like a whole
lot of
host
them-
of them there that are masculine.
Yeah, a lot of
feminine,
them do seem to
very
go
androgynous.
either way, depending on
Mhm.
who they're talking to,
Mhm.
Yeah.
or how they want to interact with the person they're talking to.
Right.
They tend to switch the genders a lot. Although these four, yes, they would be tough. Out of these four, I think Hecate and Lilith get a lot of press. And
Hmm.
although
That they do.
we should, for all the listeners, redefine what you mean by daemon, because some people may get offended when we call Hecate a daemon.
Yep.
Right.
Or
Well, I mean, a demon is a divine intelligence. That's the original meaning of the word. Divine intelligence, replete with wisdom. They're basically intelligences of the natural order of things. They're naturally existing energies in the universe. So that includes like a lot of different spirit types. That includes gods. It includes angels. It includes planetary spirits. It includes goetic spirits. It includes any spirit that has some sort of wisdom or divine knowledge that can be imparted upon you is basically a divine intelligence. I mean, we even have our own personal internal divine intelligence too, because we are all part of the divine as well. So, I mean, in that sense, even we are demonic, or part of us is demonic. Our higher self is demonic. So that's what I mean by that.
right, because we have to specify that because some people.
Well, that's because
know,
everyone's stuck in that Judeo-Christian worldview, aren't they? Like, unfortunately, they just can't get out of it. They can say all day long, well, I'm not Christian, I'm not Christian. But when it comes right down to it, they still have a very Judeo-Christian worldview because they don't realize that a malevolent spirit and a devil are different than a demon. Christians perverted the word demon and turned it into synonymous with devil. And there you are.
I'll take a lot of hate mail for this, but I'll own it. My experiences with Hecate indicate she has far more teeth than the general press gives her, and far more fangs and far more claws than what is generally out there. Like, as in, there's a lot that seems missing from her mythology that's sort of in the Greek myths, but not in the modern mythos of Hecate. Like,
well, that's because a lot of modern stuff, they want to whitewash everything and make it all pretty and beautiful and everything's love and light and yada yada yada. And there is no spirit. I don't care which spirit is out there. They're all very neutral. Whether or not they're good or evil is a perception of us. That has nothing to do with them. They simply are what they are. And it's not all love and light and roses and unicorns and butterflies. Every single one of the spirits in this book have both positive aspects, what we would consider positive as human beings, and negative aspects. And it's where you take it.
What? Maybe instead of positive and negative, we call human friendly or human.
Or even,
I don't even know how to say it.
Antagonistic. I mean, but that's the thing, though, isn't it? I mean, that's a perception, an individual perception. I mean, we can really talk about like perceptions with regard to demons, just because, like, the example I always use is a mountain lion. If a mountain lion eats a toddler, is that because the mountain lion's evil, or is it because the mountain lion's just doing what a mountain lion does, and that's eating toddlers because it needs food? It's a opportunistic kill at that point. And because the animal has to stay alive, it's doing what it does for survival. Everything is like that. Everyone's like, oh, you can do magic and it's for the good of all and to harm none. Well, if you need you need money and you find $100 on the sidewalk, yay, good for you. Bad for the guy who lost $100 on the sidewalk, though, right? So not everything's so black and white, and everyone likes to put everything in these nice little black and white boxes, and you can't do that with anything. That's where, you know, everything's a shade of gray. So we really, I mean, have to consider that. Like, I don't care what spirit you're working with, there's always that shade of gray. And magic too. Everything you do in magic has a consequence. And you have to be willing to accept responsibility for that consequence, regardless what it is.
See, with that line, I'm just getting the Rumpelstiltskin line from Once Upon a Time with that.
Hold on a second. Magic has a cost, dearie. I mean, but it's. I mean, we're talking about the magic having a cost, but it's a lot less than what people think it is, and it's not as scary as Hollywood. So, for those who've been listening for a while, like, it's not, the cost is usually not what you think. So, do magic, like that's the whole point of the show. One deity that I wanted to talk about was Tezrian, because this comes up from multiple cultures, depending on where you read the Google search. So, for your research, where are you drawing from? Where does the entity come from?
So basically, Tezrian is from the works of Ducante, but I believe she has like an Armenian origin.
Yeah, she has a Slavic.
From my understanding, yeah, it's very Slavic, and I have not seen her in any other hierarchy, demonic hierarchy, except for Richard Ducante's. And a lot of people think Richard Ducante created demonolatry. He did not. He created a hierarchy that just happened to be very popular with certain groups of demonolators. That's all. So that's where Tezrian comes from. And you know, a lot of Slavic spirits are definitely not, they're not all nice and
they're not warm and
happy
fluffy.
and friendly.
No.
Yeah.
No. And this Slavic spirit is probably not fluffy at all. There's many Slavic gods and goddesses of straight up darkness, death, blood, kind of name it. Throughout the region, there's more than a few of that kind of vibe where they're happy to see a nice battlefield like the Morrigan of dead soldiers or dead warriors. And that was my rating of Tezrian, was sort of like that, like this Slavic goddess of death and war, but not quite, maybe not death, it's war.
Right.
I don't know how you get war without death, but I don't know.
Well, the act of war itself, right? Not the result of war.
Yeah.
Well, and also, I mean, if you look at it that way, also, if you have a spirit of war, they're also very, very good at protection, you know, and helping you deal with conflict. So people have to look like, when you have something that nothing is just purely negative, all things are the same, just different degrees of the same. So, I mean, there's a sliding scale here. They can either help you in a battle or protect you from a battle. So, I mean, when you look at, you know,
and also
it's where you take them.
When it comes to the planning aspect, being able to look at things clearly, not to jump into situations with an emotional response. Are you really ready to take this on, or are you better off taking some time and re-looking at a situation and then planning your attack?
Right. Picking and choosing your battles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she's also attributed discord. So she very much has some Aristotelian aspects or Eris-like aspects, like not just warfare, but discord, or the pre-steps to war, like what could start a war.
Absolutely.
Is this an entity that you would use to maybe start? No, you could probably use this to clear, if they are dominion over discord, you could certainly use it to remove discord or channel it some way.
Absolutely. For your own gain, even, like maybe alchemize discord into something productive and useful, or even good luck for yourself. It's interesting. I mean, there's different,
or cause discord in your opponents, between opponents,
right? Absolutely.
everyone counts that as like not really a curse, but that's probably the worst possible course, is starting discord between different opponents that you're already kind of having an issue with,
Right.
and then
Yep.
watching
And
it
then sit
it
back.
blow up.
Yeah, watch it burn.
Well, they're not involved with me anymore.
Where's
This
the
popcorn?
popcorn is real good. So all the other not really talked about entities, there's Delepitoré, which is another very interesting kind of gem from the Decante spirits. I'm not sure where this particular demonic queen comes from. I know it comes from Decante, but perhaps you could tell us about this, because this is another very, very kind of interesting entity as far as what it covers and what it can do.
Yeah, she, as far as we know, she was just one that Ducante has come across and come into. So, and the rest of it is all personal gnosis. But she is a very interesting, and it's not just magic and divination. There's so much more to her that, you know, she kind of embodies discernment, being another aspect of her that I like working with her on. She's one of those, much like Tezrian, she can be a positive aspect, or she can take you down a couple of pegs.
So what
Absolutely.
cases, if someone was calling that spirit, would she take you down a couple pegs? Or would she take other people down pegs for you? Or both?
All of the above. Kind of, yeah. I mean, really, when it comes to Delepitoré, she is kind of like, I don't know, like power, confidence, manifesting one's will. So there are a lot of different aspects to her. And she is like, you know, the ultimate magician's demon. She can teach you magic, but she can also teach you how to work hard for things, because she's got kind of a Saturnian thing going on there. Maybe even a little bit, I would say a little bit mercurial, but she's also got that intuition thing going on, which is very watery. So you've got like a moon aspect. There are a lot of different aspects of her that you can work with.
Yeah.
But, you know, I do want to talk about the personal gnosis thing, because as Shay mentioned, we have not been able to find anything about her. We did research into, of course, all of the spirits that we wrote about. We could not find anything even remotely close to her in our search. And that is a problem sometimes with when you get into different hierarchies. There are, you know, and maybe you'll get a mention like in a sentence in a book somewhere or something. But even with Delepitoré, we didn't even find that. And my question is when does personal gnosis no longer becomes personal gnosis, when other people are working with that same spirit
Can I take off my store hat now? Can I take off my radio hat and put on my author hat with you?
You totally can. Go for it. Go for it.
Go for it. I think the absolute worst term that was ever invented is personal gnosis. I think it's a bullshit term. A bullshit term created by bullshit people. All of these spirits were at one time personal gnosis, right? Or stories. Like, if you summon a spirit, there's many more spirits that are not in books. Oh wait, there, hate mail's coming through already. No, I'm just joking because we heard the thing, but I think when I hear that, the term unverified personal gnosis, it puts me to a point where I want to go up to the person and punch them when they're using that as a method to discredit authors who are talking about spirits that they discovered and that they work with. Because really, to me, the only thing that you should be asking is, okay, well, let's see your results. Okay, well, let me try to
agree with
you.
spirit.
I agree.
Right. Because
we agree with you
basically,
100%.
from a shamanic point of view, from a purely shamanic point of view, you don't use the most powerful spirits are never the book spirits, or A lot of times they're not.
Right.
Right. I can go down to the hell realms, as it were, get my own spirit that will be personally loyal to me, that has great power that's never been read in a book, and as Zach has seen multiple times, get real results. That's totally a shamanic trip, and that's how shamanic magic works in a nutshell, right? And correctly, if it was just a flight of fancy and no one gets any results, well, what the hell are you doing? But when you start seeing getting repetitive results from one story you pulled from the ether, I'm sorry, that's not unverified personal gnosis.
I agree.
That's
but we had to address it.
Yes,
we have to address it because of the fact that people will say, "Oh, well, Delepitoré has no historical place." You know, all these other spirits that we wrote about
also doesn't have any historical
places. But yeah,
you know who else didn't have any historical place? Cthulhu has no historical place in any pantheon.
Right.
So you can kind of like this gets into like the whole anti-chaos magic and anti kind of innovation threads that are in occultism that from my perspective, and I'll take the hate mail, I don't care on this one, is basically because people want to cling to authority because their magic doesn't work, and they want to cling to authority when their magic doesn't work. That doesn't mean the other spirits won't get you goods. I mean, me and Hecate, we go way back, and constantly bothers me too much for
And we should also point out that there are a bunch of Goetic spirits that have no historical reference beyond the Goetia, which appeared in the 1600s. So, or maybe even the late 1500s. But at that point, I mean, that's what you're dealing with. You are dealing with, even when you're working with Goetia, at one point it was unverified personal gnosis, which I hate that phrase too. It's bullshit.
It was someone's personal grimoire. And
right.
I don't
and
think
it was copied
Solomon's
several times by, right.
Yeah, I don't necessarily believe it was Solomon per se, but eventually you kind of have to mythologicize any grimoire that you're going to try to get out in the public. You have to.
Well, John Dee created all of the Enochian magic system, and nobody bitched at him about that. He channeled that shit.
Right, he channeled that shit.
So we just have to take it on his word that he channeled it.
Sure, but this gets into he was in an authority position, though, right? He was the court magician, so of course it works.
That's true.
Well, again, now, no, I think this is even a better discussion that we planned for, right? Because now we're getting to the real meat. Like, what does authority mean in this case? It means John Dee had the Queen's ear. That doesn't mean anything really for verification.
He could have been a good con man for all we know.
Right, and if you read some takes, maybe Dee was sort of, not Dee, but I forgot who John Dee's partner was.
Talbot.
But it sounded like they were kind of a con man.
Right.
Right, because they're like tricksterish, they got people to believe in it. Maybe John Dee was the real deal, and people get real results from Enochian magic. That's totally, no one's arguing that the system doesn't work. It certainly does. You'll call up some weird beings, which I don't really care what people or how people want to hate mail me it, but they're not angels. I don't care. Take it. You could tell me they're angels, that he's channeling angels, but whatever they are, they're not angels to me.
Right. It was Edward Kelly, by the way. Edward Kelly,
yeah.
Talbot, yeah.
So they're not to me. So again, I don't know what they are. I just know if I called the planetary angel things associated with the planetary angels, they seem like they're past the Pluto gate, as in this is past the Oth or some other weird combination. AKA, it feels like it's a different world of beings that had a different set of rules on how they work. Like, that's not to say what the systems has. I said when I've summoned them, that's what they feel like some sort of alien intelligences that don't really know about this world, or they know about this world now, but they don't feel like they quite fit.
No,
they're structure and ceremony magic. They're out of sync.
Out of sync. They've got a different vibration. To them, and they are very curious. I mean, I've actually worked with Enochian. The system is sound. I'm just saying, there's always the one guy who started it, and people need to actually consider that. So that doesn't invalidate, right? And that doesn't. So that's why I'm saying, when you have a spirit that doesn't have a historical background, you do have to kind of look at it as well. Yeah, I mean, the only way you can tell if this is valid is to actually work with that spirit, and what results you get from that. I think
that's true. Mm-hmm. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, shit. I mean, there's so many unverified personal spirits that we have. Some of which now that I'm like, all right, Zach, I'm gonna put this in my fire book or this other book. I'm gonna slip them in. Mm-hmm. They're nobody's spirits, but my own. Yet consistently we see with other people various vast results. This is a spirit like that. Like, although with this particular spirit, when I saw the images other people had created, the first thought I said is this is a mask for Nyx. Like it's a type of variant, not the whole Nyx, but like a mask for this spirit. It felt very similar to that.
Like an avatar.
But that's not to say that like an avatar. Maybe not truly an avatar, but I'm saying that's what it felt like to me. But also that happens to be what I'm just doing a lot of work with right now. So
absolutely.
But yes, I am pretty much against the term unverified personal gnosis. I just can't. I've heard this term be used against people now a lot. Now, granted, there's some times when you're channeling an entity that maybe the spirit is lying, or you don't have what you're saying it is, and that your personal gnosis is so far outside of the archetype that really should be classified as something different. And really, that's what these spirits' names are. They're individual classifications of sort of a force that probably doesn't respond to language in the way that we think they do. And yet, even the book spirits are sort of describing a classification, more of a classification than a noun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Besides my rant on hating the term unverified personal. It's like the universe totally agrees with our rant against unverified personal gnosis.
I know.
So getting us back into Delepitoré, because otherwise we'll rant on unverified personal gnosis the whole show. So this is a spirit that has multiple aspects, from the divinational aspects to the magic. But what kind of magic and ascension? Like, what kind of magic and ascension have you found in your own work?
Well, for me anyway, she kind of has some similarities to Thoth and Seshat for me. So it is more about, for me, she is more about finding your personal power and manifesting your will. That's just my perspective.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. She is probably one of the ones that I have told students to work with if they're unsure of where their true strengths lie. Some people are great with divination. Some people are better with necromancy, but they don't know where to focus their energy first because there's this smorgasbord in front of them. And working with her, she has a tendency to say, yes, there's all of these possibilities, but your strengths look more like they are aligned here. Work there first. Not that you can't work everywhere else, but work here first. So she does help the magician target, I think, better, with more concentration and narrowing down where their strengths and where their natural abilities lie.
Well, and it's kind of like there's like a class of like teacher spirits, or professor spirits, as I would call them. Like, that's not to say all spirits can't teach you. All spirits can teach you something, but there are specifically like a certain group of spirits in my mind anyway that are specifically like teachers, like the kind that sit their students down and say, here's your homework and here's what you're going to do. And this is what you need to do or whatever. And they're going to be very specific and targeted like that. And she's one of them, along with Ronov. And there are a few others, or actually quite a few others, but Thoth is one of them. those types of spirits where they're just kind of like, okay, here's your homework. Your test is next week. Make sure that you study for it or whatever. So, and if you don't do it right, you know what? Do it again.
And again, and again, and again.
And that classification, to me, sort of depends on who you are and what spirit it is, because different spirits are kind. See, for instance, we are well aware on the show that everyone knows that Sorath is probably a teacher of mine, but no one would consider that a teacher in the general sense of the word. But certainly I would.
Yes. Well, like I said, like most spirits are teachers to some degree. Some are just more, it's more obvious with some.
Yeah.
And I agree with you about Sorath.
Oh, yeah.
Once you get burned enough times, he starts sitting you down and saying, it's time to get this down. Like, instead of getting burned, I'm going to show you now what you're supposed to have gotten by getting burned, which you didn't. Clearly, I will be more specific.
Yes.
Yeah.
And educational. But since you got burned enough times, it's getting boring for me to keep burning you like this. So here you go.
Well, the fact that you keep coming back for more, that says something right there. Anyway, go ahead.
Now, is this a spirit too that has like a kind of, although it's teaching spirit, is there a threshold before you're interesting? Like some teachers, different teacher spirits won't go. They will not teach you if you're not interesting enough or you meet some threshold of.
I think in my experience, she seems to tend toward people who have natural affinities for certain things, like natural abilities. If you've just got an average ability for something, she might be like, meh, and she'll help you if you ask. I mean, she's not a complete asshole like some spirits can be. Mm-hmm. But if you have like a really strong penchant for something, a really strong inborn talent for something, then she does seem very interested and she will approach those people.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what the talent is.
No.
Right. It doesn't. I mean, any type of latent magical talent, whether it be in divination or raising energy or grounding energy or speaking with spirits or the dead or whatever it is.
So the qualification essentially would be, one, you have some latent talent or ability, and then it goes, she'll go into more of a sorting hat perspective saying, okay, this is what you're good at. Let's move you here and hone these skills.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she's one of the more forgiving teachers. Not that she won't give you a, what the hell are you doing? Right. But she seems to have a little bit more patience when you're starting, and compassion. Yeah. Especially for those who are just kind of figuring out their path. And I think that some students, especially these days, seem to need that little bit of warmth to get them through until they're ready for the heavy stuff.
So there's a guidance piece I'm hearing with her in particular. Now, what happens if you're hearing the messages and then you're not doing them? Like from a teacher perspective, there's a few things you can go with from there.
I think at some point, like certain spirits, I think if they find that their messages are falling on deaf ears, they're going to walk away. They're not going to bother. I mean, if you're not going to get it, I mean, unless they think that it's really it would have to really be worth it to them. They would have to really find you interesting, I think, for them to just give you that, I don't want to say that bitch slap, but that's kind of what it is. Give you that bitch slap to get you to pull your head out and figure out what you're doing wrong. So, and I mean, I agree with Shay. She is a lot more of a forgiving, like she's definitely more forgiving than Toth. And there are a few others, like, she's definitely more forgiving than Sorath for sure. But there is, but I do think, I also do think that it also depends on the magician working with her too. because this can happen with any spirit. Is like I'll often tell people, you know what, Belial is a pretty good like beginner spirit to work with, but there's always that one person that comes back and says, yeah, but Belial kicked my ass. And I think the same thing happens with Delepitoré. Is
actually like having summoned Belial a lot and having done semi-public rituals. There was a few people who got their ass kicked by him right off the bat, right in front of us. They're like to the point like, yeah, you did this other summoning, it was good, but this spirit came up to my face and said, "Get off your ass!" Like, no, like, you know, right in, like, kind of scary to some people. Like, so I can see where some people would say he was like kind of kick you
right. So I think I have met a couple people who thought Delepitoré was really terrifying like that. But I also think there's a lot of factors that weigh into that. So like when you're working with the spirit, if your energies don't mesh, because as above, so below, we have our own energies that we bring to the table magically too. And when you're mixing your energy with the demonic energy, you come up with something very unique. So and that's like, that includes like vibration and general likes and dislikes, and I don't even want to say personality complex, but there could be things about your personality that are directly opposed or directly work with that particular spirit's purpose, so all of those things I think weigh into how we interact with the spirit on an individual level. And that's why so many magicians, I mean, it would almost be impossible for all of us to have the same exact experience with the spirit as someone else.
I've started calling them allergy. Like, you didn't have a negative experience with the spirit, you just had an allergic reaction.
Yeah.
Right.
As in, there was something inside of you that either triggered a fear response or negative response, but it's not the spirit that's giving you a negative response usually, because they don't really work that way. It's something inside of you that's reacting and projecting, and that's like more like an allergic reaction than it is anything else. It's sort of like something like, yes, you're interpreting that, because that's what we have to do, is we use our mind to interpret the will,
and we interpret it based on the physical world too. Like what we understand of the physical world. Like a lot of people have sex with the demons. I don't think they're really having sex with demons. I think they're just having some sort of trigger response, and they're misinterpreting it as either that or
they're creating a story around the energies that seems to fit with their understanding of the energies. Like, what exactly does sex with this non-corporeal being mean? It means masturbation, right? Or imagination. That's what it really means, or imagination. So what are you feeding when you do that? Like, you're certainly connecting in a certain way to a certain energy pattern that makes it potentially disarming, mutually disarming. But that's our interpretation as human beings, right? That's
right.
I mean, that's not exactly what they might interpret it as. Like, if we could ask them, and they could have a cell phone, they might say something like, well, it opens up the connection portals in a deeper way, and that allows me to work better. Like, it's not, they might not even think about it as sex magic per se, right? Like, I'm not saying that would be, they wouldn't even comprehend sex possibly. Like,
right.
We would hear it, we would channel that, but that's all part of our human condition. Like, I think, I don't even think they could actually, even some of the terms we throw around, they would know what we mean. But I think you're right. What you said earlier was right. Like, it's just, they are what they are. It's then they have a whole bunch of the pieces of that puzzle when we call a spirit that sort of, we fill in the gap, even if it's a book spirit, not just unverified personal gnosis. So I might actually say every summoning is an unverified personal gnosis summoning, which is why I hate the term, because even if you call the most common spirit, it's going to be completely unique, because you're going to fill in so many of the blanks. It's sort of like somebody gives you a symbol, and then all of a sudden you're talking to a person, or like someone gives you a framework, and then you fill in the gaps of a person because that's who we want to talk to, like, or we need a person to talk to, so we make one, like.
Right.
Well,
Well, and that's
right.
where discernment is super important. And, that's something that Shay and I often tell our students is you
We
really
push
need
it a
to.
lot.
Yeah. Because I mean, you can create your own version of a spirit in your mind and give it shape, give it form, give it voice. It'll agree with you on everything that you want it to agree with you on. And, I think a lot of that happens with the God spousing that goes on.
Wait,
Is
what?
God spousing? You don't know about God spousing?
Well, I know in Haiti we can in voodoo you can marry spirits, but it's
Well, yeah, I mean, I understand like the whole like giving yourself to a spirit and then like symbolically marrying yourself to them, but like there are people who actually think they are like the wife of Loki or the wife of Thor and so
that was me dropping the mic.
Sound effect.
So, but and especially when you're dealing with like feminine spirits, you get all this stuff brought up. Like people will bring it up, especially when it comes to like sex magic and everything.
Mhm.
Because for some reason, everybody thinks like the feminine divine is all about sex, because it's all about, I don't know, people are obsessed with sex anyhow, because that's how we are. We're physical beings, so of course we're obsessed.
I gotta think
sex.
that's probably a lot of males who come to you with that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
There are a lot of women too.
A lot of women.
Yeah, it's amazingly, but no, I mean, people that think, I don't know, that's it. It gets weird. It gets weird because I think people do create these spirits that take place of something that's missing in their life. So if they don't have good relationships or they don't have, and I suppose it could be, a good thing for somebody who's really lonely, but at the same time, it could also become a crutch and keep you from having healthy human relationships or developing those human relationships. Yeah. So you get people who create these spirit spouses or whatever, and they're using it to replace something they don't have in their life. And that's, but they're creating these spirits. They're basically turning them into thought forms. You know what I'm saying? So they don't have the discernment because they don't really understand, I mean, because, the spirit always agrees with them, always does exactly what they want. They never have an argument or any type, you know what I'm saying? So
I mean, if it was truly a spirit spouse, you'd probably have arguments.
Yeah, I would think so.
Because you would ask the actual spirit to do something that would be ill-advised for that domain, or something that it cannot really perform easily.
Yes.
But then again, I would bet that a lot of the people using that methodology also don't ask the spirit for real-world results. So,
right.
Very infrequently.
Sorry, I just took that like off in a totally different direction.
It's all good.
I'm
Live
sorry.
Radio.
Actually, I don't think so. Actually, that brings us to Lilith.
Yeah, it's a perfect
that really
segment.
does.
That totally brings us to Lilith, right? Like, because we're
Right.
talking about raw kind of beings of sexual energy that are possibly actually predatory in some cases, and not depends on your take of Lilith. But
and people I think people misconstrue Lilith a lot because they do. That's all they see about her, that she's like this sexual femininity, and it basically relegates the feminine to just a sex object. And that's something Shay and I kind of tried to stay away from in this book. We tried to like bring a wider picture to the feminine divine and kind of steer it away from sex, because we want people to know that these spirits, just because they're in the feminine, there's more to them than sex. Even Lilith.
Oh gosh.
Oh yeah. I mean,
through barriers and paradigms and getting yourself out of mindsets that are being pushed on you by others. having the confidence in yourself to say, screw this, I'm making my own path. It's not all about, like Steph said, the sex. She has so much more to her and so much more that she can offer, especially when she works in tandem with some of the other demons and demonesses. It's amazing what she actually brings to the table, but she's constantly shortchanged as the one who wanted to be on top. And that's so damn insulting.
Yeah. So yeah, we wanted to get away from the sex thing. I mean, and there's no doubt that there is, like, you know, that a lot of people work with her for sexual aspects, to discover their own sexuality, to bring more sexuality into their life in some way, to glamour other people. Now, glamour, though, isn't really a sex thing. That's more of an influence or a manipulation thing. But it also is a confidence thing and an internal beauty thing. So she deals a lot with internal beauty, and that's more of a confidence, being sure of yourself, you know, being strong, being resolute, and all of that. So yeah.
That's very different. Now, most people probably don't have that problem with Hecate.
No, no, but she's got all sorts of different aspects to her too. I mean, you know, everybody says like the maiden mother crone thing, but she's also,
but they forget that she's also like monstrous in some of the stories where she will decimate a whole village that has annoyed her. Like,
right. Well, she's also associated with the cycles of life, and I guess that's where they get it too, because she's got that aspect of her that is very death related, is very death demonic, and then she's got aspects also of a birth and of life, and so you've got this whole trinity symbolism going on with her.
Yeah.
And that's not just maiden mother crone. There's also earth, water, and air, and just different, you know, the three sides of the triangle. I mean, think of any other Trinity symbology that you can think of, and it is embodied in Hecate. So.
Right.
Well,
No,
her even being a crossroads spirit too. I mean, that puts a huge spin on things.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, she opens up doorways and opportunities, and can give you choices, help you make choices,
help you
for
see
that matter.
choices where you can't see them yourself. Go, hey, look over there.
Right. Absolutely. So.
I don't think many people, though, generally speaking, everything else we talked about, sex, probably, well, maybe there's some people, but I think she's avoided that easy classification.
Yes. I think for sure. Maybe not the maiden aspect and the whole mother thing, because again, women are more than just walking wombs and sex objects. And that was like a big thing that we wanted to show in this book, is that we've thrown in, you know, maybe a fertility spell here, or, you know, a sexuality spell over here, but at the same time we wanted to show just how broad these spirits were. So, and yeah, with Hecate you're not going to get that as much, but I have known a few people who are like more like, oh yeah, well, like, yeah, but if in the maiden or the mother aspect you can work with her for these things. So, and with Delepitoré I don't think you get that as much, and with Tezrian I don't think you get that as much either, just because Tezrian is so very warlike and Delepitoré is so very intellectual.
Yeah.
So where can people get the book once it comes out next month?
It's going to be available on Amazon for sure. Hardcover, paperback, and ebook. And no, we're not keeping anything out of the ebook. I'm sure it will be pirated within the first hour. It is what it is, though, you know. And I don't know. I don't know where else we might have that.
Well, we, for an instance, know for a fact that at Queen City Curio, it will be part of our library that you can check this book out in Toronto at any time.
Awesome.
Right, everyone? See?
Perfect.
So you can come check it out if you want to see the full book and not pirate it, legally see it and like kind of take a look at it and actually take a real glance at it. Some of these entities, like, there's not many materials on, even if you look hard, there definitely isn't that many materials on Tezrian or Delepitoré, and they both come out on the Decante hierarchy. So the other two, I think there's a lot of materials on, but I don't think you've seen quite the take that you're hearing here today on those particular entities. And I feel like come by, check it out. I think you'll be happy to kind of check it out and be surprised. There's probably a lot more to these entities than kind of what people are initially thinking. Any last words of advice for people who are trying to get started with one of the four?
Shay?
Don't be afraid to. I guess that's the big thing. Don't look at it and go, ooh, demoness of battle, probably not my thing. Well, maybe you're facing something at work where you need to have a little bit of oomph and confidence and you have to figure your way around that problem. That's probably where you should start. Don't be afraid to jump in with both feet.
Yep, I would agree. And don't be afraid to like work with them outside of your preconceived notions as well.
Yes. Yeah, that's another big one.
Do either of you have anything coming up in the near future?
I do. Starting next week on the 8th, and then it will be doing a second session on the 29th. I'm doing a class on the Dumb Supper, the history, what to do. And then on the 29th, we're all going to get together virtually and actually have a Dumb Supper and see who and what comes through.
Holy crap, so are we.
I was like, the timing on that, we're like, what?
Great minds think alike.
And hopefully,
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
That's pretty cool, actually. Go ahead, Shay.
I was going to say I probably have one more book coming out toward the end of the year, and it is How to Draw Friends and Sacrifice Toxic People.
Nice.
And yes, it is a take on the Carnegie book that was so popular, How to Draw Friends and Influence People. But it's like totally black magic.
Oh man, we're gonna have to bring it on the show
twist
for that.
on the how to win.
Totally wanting to bring. I wanted to do that. I want to see that book right now. I need it in my life right now. Bring it.
And then at some point, there will be the Demon Kings.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we do have the 4 Demon Kings. We just have to figure out which ones we want to do. We haven't figured out which Demon Kings we're going to pull out and work with for that.
Very good. Yeah. Very good. These 4 queens probably could be a great add to your repertoire. And Stephanie, do you have anything coming up recently besides the book?
Nope. That's it for the moment.
Well, very good. Zach, what does the store have coming up in the near future?
Lots. So we have your tarot sponsor workshops. We've already gone through all the elements. And then we will also be having a few rituals and workshops being planned out toward the new year. And with that, we have our sponsor. We have that. We do have a film showing coming up. So we got those details for people interested.
That's right. We will have a showing of a documentary being made at our studio called the Unknown. I think it's the Unknown You or Unknown, that they're documenting, taking somebody in to work with necromantic spirits, and we're going to document the whole process and then have a showing on Black Friday here at 607 Gerard Street. The filming is happening now, so the documentary will be, the showing will be here, and we'll probably have a psychic fair that day too, for when they're doing the showing, so everyone can come here and then. Yep,
Yes.
and then as we spoke, like our October 29th will be a history of the Dumb
Hecate
Supper.
panel.
Well, Hecate panel, and the next one, the week after on the 5th, will be the Dumb Supper episode, like for the sponsors that we're going to cover how to do a Dumb Supper and then roll into a seance and how to do both.
Nice.
Seances don't have to be garbage. I just say to the audience, it can be, they're a real magical technique if done correctly. They're not a garbage sort of, when you see it in Hollywood you think it is, because it was such a huckster thing in the Victorian age onward. But it really actually is a real magical system, a real magical set of tools that are pretty useful. And you don't need a Ouija board to do a seance either. So with that, as we say every week, please stay well, healthy, happy as you can be. Go out there, try this stuff out. This is Deeper Down the Rabbit Hole in the Queen City videocast. If everyone can stay on a second while we take us on out.